What's up, everyone? Welcome to the first edition of The Crown, brought to you by KC Sports Company. And we are going to be talking about Kansas City Royals baseball. Yes, the 14-31 Kansas City baseball Royals still get love on this network, and it's going to be our first episode today. It's typically going to be dropping on Thursday. I did celebrate a birthday this week, so I kind of moved it back the first week. This first episode's dropping on Friday, but from here on out, we can plan for these episodes to be dropping every Thursday. And before we even get into the topics today, I want to be loud and clear that this show is made for you guys. I mean, if you're listening to a show about the Kansas City Royals right now, I mean, amen to you right now. Like, props to you, because that takes a lot of commitment. You are a hardcore fan, and to you, I have to say, I want to be talking about what you want to hear. So obviously, these topics today, I picked them, but from here on out, any suggestions, any things you want me to dive into, please reach out, whether it's a comment. If you're listening on the YouTube page, you can comment on the KC Sports Company Twitter page, or my own personal. My DMs are open, or you can at me at Tenpenny 88. We want to talk about what you guys want to hear, because again, like I said, it's already, it's halfway through May, and it's already been a long season for us diehard Royals fans. So I want to make sure the topics are about what you want to hear. But for this week, first week, there's a couple things I wanted to get into. It was a decent week for the Royals, coming off a winning series in San Diego. That's exciting, and we will get into that. Some key matchups. Key things happen, like Scott Barlow. He's turning a corner. He only had two real bad games. We'll dive into that. Is Brady Singer starting to click a little bit? Back-to-back starts. That's exciting. What I want to start with today, though, is kind of starting to gain a little bit of buzz. Still not a lot, but I have started to see a little bit of the Salvador Perez. Is he going to be traded at the deadline this year? And it hasn't even been a lot from like Royals fans. Royals fans don't really want to trade. I've seen, the Yankees fans and the Padres fans from this earlier this week. Those teams that need a catcher are starting to look at old 33-year-old Salvador Perez, see the 282 average, the bombs, top five in just about every offensive category when it comes to catchers, outside of on-base percentage. But it's starting to get some of these bigger markets that can afford to take on Salvy's contract interested. And for those of you who don't know, Salvy's got, after this year, he's got 3 years left, including a club option worth about $55.5 million. So it's steep for a big catcher like that, who is old, and who knows how he's going to progress. He's doing well right now, but you know how Father Time is. I think that's a lot to take on. So that's kind of where I want to start, is to those, with those rumors. Like, does it even make sense for the Royals to trade Salvador Perez? Like, what value can they really get? Because like, to us here, he is a World Series champion, World Series MVP, does everything, hit 48 home runs. We all know that. We think the defensive metrics are a little off. They blame too much on framing. Like, in our eyes, he's a superstar, essentially, because he is. The things that he does, you can't always put on a stat sheet. You have to watch him every night. And let's be real, most Royals fans are watching the Royals fans every night, so you can't expect other ball cups to be doing the same. But having said all that, the contract, the age, and the fact that, beat it with a dead horse, that Salvy does the two things that is really, really valuable to major league teams right now, he does poorly, and that's on-base percentage and framing. Is it fair to Salvy that that's the case right now? No, because he does so many other things well. He has so many other qualities that you want on a team competing. I mean, he's been there, done that. Like, what more could you want? He was on a team full of quality players, and he was probably the most consistent of them. So like, he has his own value, and teams know that. That's why there's interest. That's why there's interest in a 6'4", 250-pound catcher on the wrong side of 30. Like, because teams know he has value, but in negotiations, like, they're going to have so much firepower to bring down anything the Royals may want down, because it's like, the Astros went with Martin Maldonado, and we had Martin here for 3 months, and we saw that it doesn't provide anything offensively. He's a great defensive catcher. He gets the frames, and like, that's all he does. And when you have the Astros winning World Series with that kind of catcher, it makes guys like Salvy, who can't walk and can't get a call, to trade. And then if you want him as a DH, some of these teams that do have catchers, like I know the Phillies have JT Realmuto, but they fought a lot of injuries. Maybe they're looking to get a right-handed bat. I don't know. Um, they're not going to overpay for a DH who can't walk either. So there's just so many factors in these negotiations that I think the Royals would either have to eat so much of his salary that would it really be worth it, or just keep him in Kansas City where he's loved, and that it would just be great to see him right off into the sunset with his team. Hopefully, with the team starting to turn the corner. Or do you just give him up for pennies for 3 years? And I don't think any Kansas City fan wants to see that. I don't think we want to see this guy who we love and cherish and has so many good memories and still somehow provides good memories on these abysmal teams the last few years. Some of your best moments are with Salvador Perez at the plate. So like, this is more of like agreeing with all the fans here that like Salvy doesn't need to be traded. It's not like the Whit Merrifield thing where they missed the window. It's not like the Scott Barlow thing where they missed his window to maximize. It's a thing to where Salvy means a little bit more than those guys ever have to Kansas City, and the numbers and everything don't rack it up to where you're not going to get the return that. Sure, maybe it's a little inflated because of the things he's accomplished. Maybe the Royals may ask for a little more than he deserves, than he's worth, and maybe us fans will be a little more disappointed if he goes for something we feel less. But at the same time, like he there's not too many catchers like him in the league. There's not too many catchers who've hit 48 home runs, who've won a World Series, who've been a World Series MVP. So I don't think if the other teams are going to give that value without having to eat all of his salary or giving up nothing, I don't think it's worth it. I think I would much rather just see the man, have his ride out in the sunset. Maybe decline in Kansas City, and hopefully see him up with a statue someday out in Coffin, or more than likely the new ballpark. Not getting into that today. I'm sure it may be something we do talk about. Not talking about today, but yeah. Again, it hasn't gotten a lot of buzz in Kansas City, but I did see it a lot with Padre fans this earlier this week, thinking about, man, wouldn't it be fun to have Salvy on the team? So just kind of wanted to give my thoughts, get ahead of it, and be like, man, you would have to blow me away to get me on board. Otherwise, I would much rather just see the Venezuelan superstar stay here in Kansas City. The next thing I wanted to get into is a little bit like I talked about earlier is Scott Barlow, because again, he's another trade piece. He's another guy that actually probably should be traded 2 years ago, but at least should be traded this July. And anyone who's followed me and follows me on Twitter or has heard me talk before about the rules and knows I love me some Scotty Flo Barlow. That is my guy. He's been my guy for like the last 3 to 4 years, even when he was struggling a little bit a few years ago. I think it's the hair. I think it's the demeanor. It's just all of it. I love watching Scott Barlow play baseball. And so to see early on in the season, he had those rough games against the Rangers, and a lot of the sentiment, whether it was, on the forums, on Twitter, whatever, in the papers, whatever the case may be, people were questioning if Scott Barlow still had it. You take out those 2 Ranger games where he gave up, I believe, 3 and 4 runs against the Rangers, who's not on the schedule the rest of the year. Take out those 2 games, which you can't completely, this game still count. But he's thrown almost 16 innings, give up 1 earned run, and his strikeout rate is as high as it's ever been in his career. He's striking out 12 and a half per 9. It's never been higher than like 11.2 before. So that rate is including those Ranger games. So the man has been on fire outside of 2 games, gets 2 saves back to back against the Padres. And man, that trade value is going right back up. I mean, who wants Scott Barlow coming out in like the 8th inning for their, World Series caliber team? Can you imagine the Dodgers coming out with that? He might be able to close on the Dodgers, teams that may need him as a closer on these competitive teams. I think he adds a lot of value. I think that the Royals have showcased him up way too much because, again, they missed the window to maximize it. You know it. I know it. Anyone with the brain knows that the Royals GM, that the franchise missed on Scott Barlow's biggest window. But he's starting to pick it back up to where that window is getting a little bigger, to where maybe you will see a quality return for him. And as much as that would stink, because again, I love Scott Barlow, it's great to see that the early panic on this man is faded off, because I don't think anyone's worried. I mean, his ERA for the year is still like 3.6. His ERA plus is like 125. you include the Ranger games, the numbers are still pretty dang good. You take them out and they're top tier. So I would love to see, Chapman is, had been a little up and down this season. Amir Garrett's starting to put together, but the Royals got some arms in that pin that, like, you get the right team that needs some bullpen help and you send them a lefty and a Scott Barlow. It's weird because it's relievers, but that to me would be the best thing the Royals could do for a return at the deadline. I know it's mid-May and it does suck a little bit that we're having to talk about this already, but that's just the reality of it, that when Scott Barlow was struggling, it wasn't that people were really upset that he was struggling for the Royals. It was upset that they were worried that he wasn't going to have any trade value anymore. That doesn't seem to be the case. Obviously, we still got, 2 months until the deadline, so anything can happen. But it is nice to see maybe the most consistent player outside of Salvy over the last, 4 years or so has been that player still. He's been that productive guy that you can rely on as a fan that, hey, when it's Scott Barlow time, 9 times out of 10, that dude's going to knock it down. And if he doesn't, he's going to come out the next night and completely forget about it. Something I've always admired about him. So a little bit of as a fan, excited that he's done well, and also as just, wanting this team to get better and having those assets to potentially turn around some of this rebuild that has gone so poorly. Just excited to see Scott Barlow can keep it up, see what they get. Excited to cheer him on in the postseason should the Royals trade him. I think that's completely okay to do. I did it with Soler a little bit when they traded. Didn't do much with Santana, some of these other guys, but I think Scott Barlow would be the first guy to, like, if he gets traded to the Braves and I'm watching the Braves in the playoffs and Scotty Flo's coming out in the eighth, I'm going to be locked in. I'm going to be watching it, rooting that guy on just because of how much he's meant to me. And I think a lot of you, just as being one of the few pieces that you could rely on day in and day out on this struggling franchise. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. Here's a quick shout out from our sponsors, and then we will be right back. We'll talk about a little Brady Singer and some of these moves the Royals be making and what it can mean for the 26-man roster over the next few days.
What up, KC? After yet another Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl victory, we have an awesome opportunity for you to broadcast your business or your services to a very enthusiastic Kansas City audience. We've started Kansas City Sports Company, which is a sports media broadcasting hub that brings multiple different live shows covering all the local Kansas City sports teams. We're offering 30-second ad spots, 60-second ad spots, event sponsorships, show sponsorships, studio sponsorships, and much, much more. If you want more information, or if this sounds like an opportunity for you, either contact me or hit that contact us link on the website.
And we are back, getting into some more Royals topics. Wanted to jump into Brady Singer a little bit because I think one of the things that has made the start to the season so brutal, other than, how bad the offense was in April, was the fact that Brady Singer wasn't giving us anything either. I mean, this was a man who looked like he had turned a corner. He was almost must-watch TV, from May to the end of the season last year in Kansas City. And now his ERA was over 9 at one point. It was high 8s or low 7s going into the start the other night against the Padres. It was like, if you don't even have one of your young guys who you were excited about a season ago, he's not giving you anything. That's really tough on a fan base, because even if he was doing well, at least you could be like, all right, 1 out of every 5 games, like, I can get up, I can get excited to watch my team play some baseball. But that just hasn't been the case. And, I'm still not the last 2 starts has been good for Brady. The last 2 starts has been, 6 innings, 1 earned run 2 starts ago, 2 earned runs this last start against the Padres. He gave up 4 total runs, but that defense in the 6th inning was so tough. Cost him a 7th inning, if we're being real. Like, if Michael Garcia and Edward Olivares communicate on, I believe it was like a foul out in the 5th inning. Maybe it was the 6th if I'm remembering incorrectly, but like, if they communicate better and that ball doesn't drop, the Padres scored 2 more runs that inning, and also part to a Matt Duffy era, MJ Melendez era, like, just kind of steamrolled for the Royals, and ended up causing Brady 2 unearned runs, ended up causing Brady probably an inning. But even taking that aside, I still think he's looked a lot better. That no question about it. 2 back-to-back good starts. I'm not ready to say he turned the corner yet, though, and we're ready to see the old Singer. And the reason being is he's not getting a lot of swings and misses right now. And he's kind of had that strikeout looking in his bag this year a little bit. That's kind of been one of the things that he's done well is work the corners and get those calls. But again, 2 starts ago, he only had 4 Ks. Against the Padres, he had 3 Ks. I need to see a little bit more swing and miss from Brady to really feel like he's back to that because, and it's what we've been talking about for probably the last 3-4 years with Brady Singer, is it seems like teams are really starting to figure out sinker slider. If you guess, you have 50% chance because that changeup, while it's been used a little bit and we've seen some games with some flashes, it just doesn't. It's not something hitters are even really thinking about. And it's just not consistent enough. They feel like they can pick it up when the few times he does throw it. They're not worried. And these are big league hitters. If you don't have a changeup or at least a third pitch, which that's the furthest one along, it's really easy to guess, and no matter how good your pitches are, his sinker and slider are nasty. His 2-seamer slider, whatever you want to call that fastball, it's nasty. It has both had tons of movement, able to get strikeouts. You've seen it. Excuse me. But it's just one of those things to where these are still big leaguers. They're going to be able to guess. They're going to be able to stay on it. Even a crazy pitch like those 2 can be at times. And I needed to see a couple more. I need to see a little bit more swing and miss to show that those 2 pitches are enough for a starter. And also that, that changeup continues to develop. And you're probably sick of it. You're like, Christopher, like, we hear you. The changeup's been all that we can talk about for Brady Singer's development forever. It wasn't like it was great last year, and he still had, like what we talked about, a phenomenal season. But it's to take that next step and not to, have these droughts where he is throwing, 8 earned runs, 5 earned runs. Those are the numbers he was putting up previously. You need that third pitch. Otherwise, you start to get into that Brad Keller range and like completely different style pitchers, completely different pitch mixes. Brad's has a lot more in his arsenal, but Brad's thrown some flashes too at points in his career, but he doesn't have the stuff. And once people start to figure out what he has, we've seen flashes of Brad Keller, but Brad Keller for the most part has been a tough watch. Looked like a little league pitcher there against the Padres, walking, I think 7 and 3 innings or whatever it was. That was insane. I have seen little leaguers throw better innings than what Brad Keller was doing the other night. That was one of the hardest watches of the season. But back to Brady, it's like, great. You got to start somewhere. Maybe build some confidence up, being like, okay, put a couple good starts together, see what we could do this next time out. Get 3 starts and just start stringing them. Just start building up and see where we can get. Because it is more fun. It is more fun when you have a guy like Brady Singer who is going to give you 6-7 innings of quality innings, not those Jordan Lyles 6 to 7 innings where it's like, all right, go out there. No, actual quality innings. Would love to have at least that to rely on once every 5th night. And bring me back. I think it'd bring a lot more fans back in a little bit. It's crazy as it sounds. I think a lot of fans are done watching them regularly, especially the casuals, and it's very warranted. It's another year of just being like, hey, we suck. And that's just tough on a fan base. But you have a guy that, places it together. I think it'll draw a few more people back in to see, hey, what's Brady Singer done? He was kind of fun to watch last year. Let's see if he can keep it going this year. So, long story, I need to see a little bit more for Brady, but it's obviously better than the alternative. Having 2 good starts back to backs, something to build on. Last thing I really wanted to get into today on this first episode is there's a lot of roster moves that are probably about to be happening. We've got Daniel Lynch, Nicky Lopez, and Drew Waters all in Omaha. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of them are already up by the time you're listening to this. I think there could be some moves Friday. We'll see exactly what the Royals want to do, where they are with Lynch especially. I think he's the one most likely to get called up. Um, it's going to be interesting to see what they do because right now all they have as starters is, Singer, Grinke, Keller, and Lyles. They don't really have a fifth one. It was Bubic. He's out for the season. And they put Yarbrough. He's on a 60-day DL. Carlos Hernandez, who's been okay, but I think he's a bullpen guy, and I think he can really thrive in that. I don't really want to see him having to start. So Daniel Lynch gonna be asked to come up and be that guy. And I think he's someone I'm really interested because there's not a lot of pitchers to get excited about anymore. Remember a few years ago, it was like all we could talk about were starting pitchers. And now it's like, well, we still kind of wait on these younger guys to see what they have and when they're big league ready. The only real, there's Austin Cox who did great in his 2 innings of debut. I think he had a good start today. I think he threw 5 or 6 innings of 1-run ball down in Omaha. Him and Daniel Lynch are really the only two. Kowar's not moving any needles. Bubic out for the year. We're kind of ready for Singer to not just be that almost ace type guy. So Daniel Lynch is the only guy to really get excited about. So I'm going to be interested in his first few starts, see how he looks. I'm not putting a lot of expectations on him. I think that's the main difference. Is I think he had expectations 3 years ago. Now it's kind of like, can you just be a semi-competent starting pitcher, which is a very low bar, but that's where we are as a Royals fan base. I'm able to see how he looks with this new staff. I'm able to see how his stuff looks, how his command is, because he's always kind of battled that a little bit at the major league level. It'll give us at least us as fans that are going to watch through and through something interesting to turn on the TV and see what he's got. And I hope it's for the best because he was the guy that I thought was always going to be the best of that group. Just a lefty with his release, decent slider, decent pitch mix. I just really I thought he was going to be the one that could thrive immediately. And as we all know, that is not the case. He is battling. He's had some flashes, and that's what happens when you're got the stuff that Daniel Lynch has and was drafted where Daniel Lynch was. But I need to see it more. You need to see something from the starting pitcher. Otherwise, just blow the whole thing up. And they should already be thinking about that. And we can say that whole topic for another day. But if you have no starting pitcher, who cares how Bobby, Vinny, MJ, Michael Massey, all these young hitters progress? If you have zero starting pitching and zero resources to go get it, because we know the Royals aren't doing that. They spend a lot of money on Jordan Lyles of all people. They aren't spending money to go get free agents in here to help. Daniel Lynch can't even be, someone you can semi-rely on next to Brady Singer. Then what are we doing here? What is the point? Then you've got a lot of money to a bad pitcher in Lyles. Keller's going to be gone, as most fans are probably happy about. Grinke's probably going to retire, and he's had his moments, but he can't seem to pitch on the road. So not expecting anything out of him. What do you do as a fan base? So there's not expectations on Daniel Lynch because we've seen him for so long, but there's also a little bit of pressure there for what I talk because man, he goes out there and continues to struggle like we've seen in the past and doesn't look good early on. It's going to be really hard to be optimistic about this pitching staff on any level moving forward. That's just one move. The other two moves, it's interesting. I think Drew Waters, we're finally going to get to see up here in the big leagues. I think he started back-to-back games for the first time. So he's still probably a little bit of ways, but he's in AAA starting back-to-back games. So he's close. I think Nate Eaton is the logical move there. I think they wanted it to be Jackie Bradley Jr. I don't think Jackie was supposed to be here long term, but Nate has just been so bad. I mean, he's already been sent down and back up due to injuries and the Franmil Reyes stuff and everything that Nate Eaton is given the no choice to keep Jackie because whatever you say about Jackie at the plate, he can play some defense. He can go and get that ball. He's reliable on Nate Eaton is just too much of a wild card, man, who can't hit. He hasn't been hitting right now. He's been hitting at AAA. Great. Those 15 games or whatever it was in AAA he was hitting. Cannot buy a hit at the major league level. So I think we're going to see Nate Eaton go back. And then Nicky Lopez is the one that's most interesting to me because they have a couple options here. And I think the logical one for how this organization functions is to send Michael Garcia back down. He's been in a little bit of slump, and so they're going to be able to say how they function. That's the logical decision, which is absolutely insane. Like, okay, Garcia is still a young kid who's shown a lot of tools and a lot of. Did you see that double he hit the other day against the Padres? It was like 106 off the bat and just burned Trent Grisham, who's a very good defensive center fielder there in San Diego. Like, the tools are clearly there. Everyone goes through slumps. I want to see Garcia here at the major league level. I do not want to see him go back down to AAA for Nicky, who I think also belongs to the major league level too. They just continue to find reasons not to not to cut Hunter Dozier. And it's just blows my mind. It blows everyone's mind. It's been a talking point for a long time. Now's the time to do it. Now is the time to cut Hunter Dozier when Nicky Lopez is ready to come. Heck, when Drew Waters is ready to come up. Whoever's ready to come up first or second, I don't care. It's probably going to be Nicky. Get rid of Hunter Dozier right away. What purpose does he serve? You owe him a lot of money. You wasted a high draft pick on him. Like, those aren't good enough reasons to keep major league players on 26 roster when you have a bunch of young guys you want to get a look at. I mean, really, it feels like Hunter Dozier made this lineup over Garcia and Prado to start the year, when I think the Royals know that both of those players are better than him. It's just they look at the price tag and see, the $8 million or whatever the heck it is that he's owed this year and then next year. It's like they don't. How can you not admit you're wrong? It's like someone who went on a test drive, and the test drive being Hunter Dozier in 2019, was really impressed with what they saw on the test drive, bought it, took it home, and realized it was junk. Realized it was scrap metal. And instead of getting rid of it and moving on from it, they decided they're going to just ride this thing out. Just ride, I already bought it. Might as well keep it until I'm not allowed to keep it no more. That's what the Royals are doing with Hunter Dozier right now. And I know it, it. I think they have to know it, but he's still on this team. He's still getting, 3 to 4 starts. And what's worse about it, I don't want to say he's hitting, but he's kind of not been a black hole in the lineup. I mean, he's raised his OPS from like 430 to 580 in the month of May, which is a huge jump, but like 580 is still a terrible OPS. You think, MJ and Bobby are struggling a little bit. That's, 120 to 130 points lower than those guys. So like, just cut the cord. This isn't a Jorge Soler situation. It was one thing for Soler when he was struggling because A, he got hot, and B, he had a 46 home run season under his belt. And he was a top prospect for the Cubs, and he played in the postseason before, and the power was clearly still there. Like, even when Jorge Soler felt a few years ago like he was a black hole, there were still reasons to that he was supposed to be on this team, that he could be an asset trading moving forward. And look what he did for the Braves in the World Series. Hunter Dozier is not that. He has 118 games or whatever that season was where he hit 300 and hit like the 28 home runs and 10 triples, looked really good for those 100+ games, got paid for it, and they just haven't moved off from him yet. Now is the time. There's too many young guys you're ready to call up. You're already 14-31. Why hold on to him? Just let Michael, just let Drew Waters, just let these young guys play. See what you got. Because again, it all circles back to what I was talking about earlier. If the pitching sucks anyway and you have to blow the whole thing up, don't you want to at least have some major league hitters that could help you get there faster? I know we don't want to necessarily think this in our minds as fans. We want this next core to be, include the Drew Waters and the Masseys and the MJ Melendez and whatnot. But push comes to shove, if you know it's going to be another 3 years at least, I think it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to trade a MLB player that, has middling stats, but is an MLB player than it is to, a 24, 25-year-old AAA player who's not playing because Hunter Dozier's getting at bats in Kansas City. So just cut ties, let the kids play, and just, at least that's more entertaining. I for whatever reason, maybe it's because it's unknown, I can watch Drew Waters have a 580 OPS or Michael Garcia have a 580 OPS because I know they're still young. I know I've still seen tools. I know that there's still more to grow. I'm watching Hunter Dozier eat the Royals' money and providing nothing with no future. I can't do that anymore. I know you can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I'm ready for it to move on. And hopefully it's that day is coming sooner rather than later. But again, it's the Kansas City Royals, so we'll see how they actually go about it. So all right, well, that's going to conclude the first episode of The Crown. Probably a little rusty, some things to grow on, but that's what we're here for. We're here to talk. We're this group that's talking Royals baseball. I want to again talk about what you want to talk about. So please let me know. Help me make the schedule every week. Again, these episodes, while it's coming out on Friday this week, they will be coming out on Thursday from here on out. So please make sure check it out, whether it's on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, YouTube. I'll put it on my Twitter. I think KC Sports Company will put it on their Twitter. Whatever's best for you, I'm sure you'll be able to find it, and then we can grow and get better at this together. So again, thank you so much. I'll talk to you next time.